one of the key aspects that's come through in this report and also some of my previous work is that balancing strategic tension, strategic choices is a key aspect of resilience. And what we mean by that is that every organization has some key choices to make when it looks at what it's trying to achieve and the outcomes it's trying to deliver and how it tries to deliver that. And we can think about that in two key ways. We can think about what's the mindset the organization has. And that mindset cannot be either a defensive one, so it sees issues as threats, or it can be a more progressive one. It sees it as an opportunity to innovate and to improve. But also in terms of the design of the organization, are we designing for more consistency or are we designing for more flexibility? And if we start to look at those two aspects, mindset and design, we can see that there are some key choices that an organization has to build resilience. And there are really four key strategies. So the first strategy is we can put more controls in place. That's a defensive mindset with a very consistent approach. And we put more barriers, more backup systems. We ensure compliance, more systems, more procedures. And there's often, I think, a gravitational pull for all organizations when we have a disruptive event is to go into that control mindset. But equally, another strategy, a second strategy might be to actually build some adaptability, some flexibility, and more responsiveness into the organization. So we might still have a defensive mindset, but we've got a flexible approach. And this could be improvisation, creative problem solving, people empowered to act to deal with emergent problems. A third strategy would be one where we've got this progressive mindset and a very consistent approach. So we're actually working same markets, same technologies, same service, but we just get better and better at doing it. So our strategy here is just to improve on what we're already doing and to drive some efficiencies in order to do that and optimize what we are doing. And then the fourth strategy would be the flexible one that is also progressive, which would be sometimes our full strategy is that we have to completely re-innovate and we have to think about how we do our business in a completely different way. And as I say, these four strategies of control, adaptability, or driving optimization or driving innovation, we see in organizations all the time that we often become preoccupied with one of those elements. We then have some blind spots, some issues that we have, and the balance is wrong. We've got to try and balance those four competing tensions in order to be resilient and fit for the future.
Yeah, and David, I think you make some really, really important points there and in the report, because resilience at the end of the day is all going to be about choices, and they are often quite strategic choices that have to be made. But the point is, if you make all the choices in one of the brackets that you've talked about, you may end up not being more resilient. In fact, you could end up being less resilient. I think the report really makes that very, very clear. And I'm going to stick with the water theme that I've used in previous sessions. But if I think again about water, but this time if I think about flooding, for example, you could think about, well, a defensive control, which is consistent, would be to erect sort of permanent barriers. Equally, you could think about a defensive approach, which is more flexible, is to have barriers that you can sort of deploy where needed, when needed. So they, transportable barriers, you put them up. And we see both of those defensive type of mechanisms in place today to control flooding. But on a progressive side, we can think about, well, how do we better maintain our riverbeds so there's a more consistent flow? So dredging of riverbeds, so there's a consistent flow. That could be seen as a progressive approach to trying to reduce flooding. And equally, in terms of progressive innovation, we can then think about how do we build properties and facilities that are better adapted to potential flooding, that are on stilts or other things, that we use. So using innovation to create flood defense property or buildings.